Did I not tell y'all that this judge is going to get Diddy one way or another? I did a background check on this judge, Judge Arun Subramanian. Do a complete background check on this guy. Let me tell you something. Judge Subramanian works for the system, okay? And while Diddy's trial was going on, he did everything in his power to hand the prosecution a win. And they still lost the case. And there was no way he was letting Diddy go on bail. There was no way he was going to let him out before he sentenced him. And this is what you see popping off right here. If you've not been following my videos pertaining to this trial, then I suggest you go look at my other videos that I called it before we got here. Well, Diddy will be sentenced on October 3rd after prosecution and defense have reached an agreement. I know you thinking, what kind of agreement have they reached? We about to get into all that. Welcome back to SouFLoTV. If you've never been here before, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Click the bell next to the subscribe button so you are notified every time a new video goes up on SouFLoTV. It's your host with the most. Here we go. Without further ado. So, I'm going to start this one off by saying this. Diddy was not found guilty of sex trafficking, okay? That means he did not forcibly bring anybody anywhere to engage in any sexual activities. So, with that said, he was found guilty of transportation to engage in. Okay, well, if he was found guilty of transportation to engage in, and the only two alleged victims in his trial were 50 Cent's baby mom, who testified under the pseudonym of Jane, and Cassie, who he was in a relationship with that lasted almost 11 years, it's safe to say that those two women should also be charged with the exact charge that Diddy got found guilty of, right? Transportation to engage in prostitution. But here's the thing. They already made their deal with the devil. They testified against Diddy after making a deal with the state, so they received full immunity, which means they would not be charged. Okay? And that's the only way they're not getting charged with the same thing that he's charged with and found guilty with. Think about what I just said to you. If Diddy was found not guilty, which he was found not guilty, after 7 weeks of trial, he was found not guilty of the RICO charges, to include sex trafficking, not guilty. But he was found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. Who the hell was transporting with him? Who was moving with him to go engage in these activities? Jane and Cassie. And Cassie volunteered all that information in the trial that she set up a lot of these meetings. If you hear from some of these Johns, the guys who they used, they'll tell you that it was Cassie. And she was happy with it and satisfied, and she enjoyed herself. So anyways, this is the latest, right? We already know Diddy got denied bail. He's sitting in there. They had a meeting today, the 8th of July, 2025. They had a meeting today. The meeting was between prosecution and defense, right? And this is what happened. So Sean Diddy Combs will be sentenced on October 3rd for his 2 prostitution convictions after his lawyers and the prosecution has reached an agreement, according to People. Before I go any further, let me say this again. I've looked up the law in the law books and how this law is applied and how punishment is applied for this law breaking this law according to the law. And I'll say it again. When persons are found guilty of what Diddy has been found guilty of, transportation to engage in prostitution, first-time offenders or even second-time offenders are usually hit with about 3 months to 6 months in a county jail. Not a federal prison, a county jail. 3 months to 6 months. Yes, it does carry a 10 years max. But that 10 years max is usually reserved for somebody who has been caught doing this over and over and over repeatedly. Diddy is a first-time offender. So I want you to keep that in mind when we get to the sentencing part, what they've agreed on and what this judge will actually hand down to Diddy. So Diddy's lawyers, they were the ones who formally proposed the October 3rd sentencing in a letter to the presiding judge, Arun Subramanian, noting that prosecutors and probation officers at the Southern District of New York had agreed to that schedule. I thought they moved it back because it was supposed to be September somewhere, and I couldn't see him wanting to sit any longer behind bars. For whatever reason, his defense team came up with September 3rd and got everybody to agree to September 3rd. The defense's sentencing memorandum would be due on September 19th, and the government's would be due a week later per the memorandum, which was agreed to and signed by the judge, Subramanian, shortly thereafter on July 8th, which is today. Lawyers on both sides participated in a brief telephone conference on Tuesday afternoon today with neither Diddy or the judge. None of them were present at this meeting, just the lawyers and the defense. A bunch of lawyers talking it out. Diddy, who faced a nearly 2-month-long trial, was found guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, and he was acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Now, what they are looking at as this winds down is Diddy's lawyers. So they sought to get him a $1 million bail at the end of that trial, which Judge Subramanian immediately said, hell nah, stay your ass in there. Right? He shot it down, which I expected him to do. After the government and Cassie's ex Ventura requested that he remained in detention until his sentencing, contending that he was both a flight risk and a danger to those who had testified against him. Now, this is crazy, because this man wasn't no danger to anybody who testified against him before he went to trial. Everybody was safe out here living their lives. The feds been watching him. He wasn't messing with nobody. If you think the feds built a case like this against him and they did not have him under surveillance, tight surveillance, or his counterparts and his associates under tight surveillance, then you're sleeping under a rock, okay? That man ain't no threat to nobody. That man want to go on with his life and leave these people alone and hope they leave him alone. But with that said, right after Cassie realized that they weren't able to convict Diddy on anything, out the woodworks, here she comes. I fear for my life. I'm scared. Save me. Keep him locked up. And I'm saying to myself, he didn't commit murder. He wasn't found guilty of any charges that requires a life sentence. So you suddenly being so scared and begging them to keep him behind bars is probably not going to work for too long. And saying that he's a flight risk, a flight risk for what? He beat the charges. The most serious thing he's looking at, the judge cannot be serious and say he's going to give Diddy 20 years behind this, even though by law on the books, transportation to engage in prostitution does carry a 10-year max, and he has 2, so that will be 20 years. The government actually is seeking to sentence Diddy to between 51 and 63 months in jail. This is what they're bringing to the table on October 3rd. While the defense, his team, is recommending that the judge sentences him, if he's going to give him any time, to 21 to 27 months behind bars. Diddy will remain incarcerated at the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center until his sentencing, where he will likely get credit for over a year of time served. This is going to be very interesting. So during the trial, the jury heard testimony, often emotional, with multiple victims, mostly notably Cassie. And we all know, like I said from the beginning, Cassie wasn't that much of a victim. Cassie was a willing and able participant. And that's my personal opinion, and I'm sticking to it. End of the day, couple of good things came out of this, right? Whatever they sentence him to, the only way the judge can actually, whatever they sentence Diddy to, he's just going to have to ride that time out. I honestly don't think the judge likes him. I don't think the judge likes black people, period. I also told you before that the judge was the first of his kind, a South Asian, to be elected to that position that he is in. And he spent the latter years of his career working for a very conservative, right-winged judge who actually elevated him to that position. So he owes them. And if you know anything about them South Asians and white people, they tend to be super submissive, especially when they have been granted favors by them. Yes, I'm saying what I'm saying, right? So with that said, I think when it comes time for sentencing, the judge should look at Diddy and say 3 to 5 years suspended, 5 years of probation, and you're free to go today. That's all that should come out of this. But he is pandering so much to the prosecution and so much to the state. You know, one of those guys who work for a company and they care more about the company than they care about anybody else, and they care more about the company than they even care about themselves. I see him as that type of dude. So he's going to try to give Diddy some time. You know what I mean? But hopefully it turns out how I just said it. 2 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years, suspended, time served, probation. He walks out today on the 3rd of October. That's what I'm hoping to see happen. However, don't get it twisted. It's still up to this judge. And whatever the judge gives him is what he's going to have to take. The good thing we could take away from this, though, is because Diddy beat the RICO charges, nobody can touch his wealth. So all his money, he is now free to move his money around, secure himself some more, and he still holds on to his wealth and his assets and his resources. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me if you think the judge is actually going to give him time that he will have to do, or you think the judge is going to throw some numbers out there but then say suspended and leave on probation or something. What do you think is going to happen to Diddy on October the 3rd? Leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll catch you on the next video. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Peace.